Okay, we're recording.
Well, global warming. I think the first thing to remember is that the truth concerning the fact that everybody talks about the weather, but no one can do anything really about it.
Yeah.
So the first issue is, can man affect his weather? Mm-hmm. And he has concluded that he can. Mm-hmm. And that really what's the problem is that man is affecting it negatively.
Right.
The question that keeps coming to my mind is this a cycle? Are we going through a cycle of weather differences?
Right.
Or is this something that is causal? That is, we made it happen.
Right.
And I am not convinced that we have made it happen.
Mm-hmm.
I am convinced that we have an effect.
Right.
And I think if we would concentrate on clean water and clean air and throw out the term global warming, mm-hmm. let nature take its course, and our planet would be much better. And I think really the issue is that America is probably the most economically connected to the idea of global warming, mm-hmm. in the fact that we don't have very much impact. But the countries that really do are not talking about it really. Mm-hmm. They're going to just do what they want to do.
Yeah. And for those of you listening right now, we're just talking about a few current events today. We're starting out with how researchers are warning us that the Arctic has entered an unprecedented state. And they just published a paper, and there's a lot of Arctic indicators, and they think that it spells trouble for the entire planet. So basically, at the beginning of these podcasts, we're going to be starting with a few current events, and then we'll be talking about a lot of other things too. But so, how about Brexit? How do you feel about failing for the 6th time?
Well, I think first of all, I understand why Britain is doing it.
Uh-huh.
They're doing it because the euro is in trouble. Mm. The euro world is in trouble. And the reason that the economists in Britain are wanting out is they keep having to shore up the countries that are in bad shape.
Right. And
that France and Germany wants them in, because if they stay in, you've got 3 semi-stable countries. Mm-hmm. The largest and most influential, and with Britain coming out of it eventually. So one of the things I think that's happening is that those in The Hague and some other places in Europe are saying, let's make it so hard they can't leave.
Yeah.
And so what's happened is, and Britain's very much a independent thinking country. Mm-hmm. More so than France and some of these others. And all of a sudden they're saying, no, I am not going to give you that.
Yeah.
No, we're not going to do that.
There's been a petition. There's a petition that has, let me find it. There's a Brexit petition it's a stop vote. And it's got over, it's got 6 million signatures.
Oh,
It's got 6 million signatures. It was actually just rejected. It was brought to, I don't know who they bring that up to, Parliament, I think. And I think it was rejected by Parliament. But this is the 6th time it's been stopped. Do you think it'll eventually go through? Or do
yes,
you
I do.
You do?
Because, for 2 reasons. Because the euro itself, which, by the way, is a different monetary system than what Britain uses,
right?
Though they accept the euro,
mm-hmm.
Is in trouble. The monetary thing's in trouble,
right?
And the reason it's in trouble is you have Italy, Greece, Spain, the Balkans, some of the countries that are involved. Mm-hmm. They are not really able to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. They've got to have somebody else help them. Mm-hmm. And the way it's working is that Germany is the big powerhouse, and France, I guess, would be second, but Britain is third.
Mm-hmm.
And you take those three, and you take one of them out, they're going to do everything they can to keep it from going.
Right.
They're going to do everything they can, so they're going to put every roadblock up. They know what the Brits will not accept.
Right.
And so, but I think what will happen, in fact, one man in the U.S. who is a Brit made this comment. He said, "Don't make any concessions. Just get out.
Right.
Just, don't think you have to work something out. Just get out."
Yeah.
Because they cannot live, the euro cannot live without interaction with Britain.
Right.
If Britain is gone, the whole euro thing is going to start going like this.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure if they'll. I don't know if they'll get out. It's failed so many times. So many people are against it at this point. I think it's got like a.
It's like a 52
yeah.
to get out and 49 something to stay in.
Right.
And so.
It's close. I mean, that's actually way more people that's a huge majority that doesn't want to leave.
And that's also an issue with the population. The population of Britain has changed dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more Muslims.
Right. Yeah.
And socialism is another whole issue.
It is. Yeah. That's for another day.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that wraps up our current events. That's a good little current event starter. So let's get into let's start with your book.
Okay.
So your book it's a biography of your life.
Autobiography, yeah.
Autobiography.
Yeah, biography is somebody else writes it.
Oh, right. Okay.
Okay.
It's an auto. You're doing it yourself.
I'm doing it myself,
Okay.
yeah.
And so how far are you through the autobiography?
Oh,
You can just be honest.
I'm probably right in the middle of or before my college days.
Okay. All right. Well, because I want to go through your life, I know your autobiography is going to be just about the same thing. I guess. Do we want to go through your life, or do you want to talk about your book and the stuff you're putting in your book?
Yeah.
Because is your story going to be any different than your book? The stuff you're going to tell me? Because I assume everything that you're going to tell me is going to be in your book, right?
Well, you can't put everything in the book. That's the first thing.
Right. Okay.
And so there are events that'll be just commented on in the book, where if I were to talk about it, would elaborate and there'd be more information.
Right. Okay. So, in that case, then I want to hear about your life.
Okay.
Then I don't care about your book.
All right. So.
I guess let's just start your childhood and early years. We'll start with that.
All right. I was born in Duluth, Minnesota, in July 26, 1935, and my mother was quite young. She was 17. My father was 32, and I'm the firstborn. And so what happened was, as we were in the middle of the Depression, 1935, Dad was struggling to have any kind of income. And he had been out here in California and had a failed marriage, and his ex-wife, which I did not know this till later in life, had left him for someone else. And then he sold his 160 acres in Cantil, and for $250, he told me.
Wow.
And it had a little cabin on it. And he went back to his Minnesota area where he was born and grew up. And Lake Emma was where my father was born, in Minnesota. And his father was born in Long Prairie, Minnesota. But anyway, So he and my Uncle Dick and my mom decided, well, there's nothing here. Let's go to California. And Dad said, yeah, I've been there. It looks more promising than trying to do something here.
And they were up in Minnesota at the time?
Yes.
Okay.
And so what happened was Dad, I don't know who the car belonged to because I was only a year and a half old, so I didn't know any information. But according to my Uncle Dick, who was kind of a card, but anyway, he needed to be dealt with. But anyway.
What was wrong with Uncle Dick?
He was kind of out for himself.
Okay.
Well, anyway, so I asked him one time, I said, what was the trip like? He said, you bawled and cried the whole way. And I said, well, so what kind of car was it? It says a one-seater. And so there was no back seat.
Okay.
And so I said, well, where did I ride? Oh, we put you up in the window. I said, what? I said, no wonder I was crying. I said, I feel like cooking up there. So anyway, they ended up here, and already some of Dad's family was in California.
Okay.
His brother, Everett, his sister, Eva, and we moved in with Eva when we got here. And Dad went to work for Purex Corporation for a while.
Purex, really?
He finally got involved with them.
Oh, wow.
But it was a short term.
Okay.
And so he had other jobs. He did mostly carpenter work. He was a retired a painter and paper hanger in Minnesota because it made him sick to use the paint. But other than that, that's what happened in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the stuff in my book that I talk about is when I was about 4 years old.
Yeah.
And so I was running with the kids in the neighborhood, and they decided that this guy was gone all the time, so we just climbed the fence, and he's had some chickens in the backyard. So one of the older boys said, well, let's just have a chicken dinner. And so they took this one chicken, it's still alive, so lit a fire, threw this chicken in, and of course it started burning the feathers and smelled terrible.
Oh.
And one of the boys says, well, I don't think I want any chicken. And all the way down to none of us wanted it. So, well, what do we do with this chicken? They said, well, if we can't let it just burn, we'll have to kill it. So who's going to do that? I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. So the older boy did.
You guys burned a chicken alive?
Yeah, they did. So
savage.
then we got into the guy's house.
Okay.
This is a very vivid memory for me because I remember going into the toilet, the restroom, and they had grabbed all this man's papers and they were trying to flush him down the toilet, just out of meanness, really.
Wow. And
tearing up the house. And just about that time, the man came home. And everybody split. We all went different directions. Well, here I am. I'm just 4 years old, maybe 5 at the most. And we're running, okay? We're all running, and I don't know. And one of them says, they'll put us in jail. I go, jail? Okay.
How old were you at the time?
About 4. So we're running, and this alley that went behind the houses where we were had somebody at one time had built a garage across the alley. So you had this garage right in the middle of the alley, and then it started again on the other side.
Yeah.
So we all knew how to get through there. We'd kept all those windows open. We'd jump up and go through the guy's garage, go out the next window, and get on our way. So I ran home and crawled under the bed of my mom's house, that bed, and Mom came in and she said, well, what's going on? What's the matter? Oh, they're going to get me, Mom. They're going to get me. And of course I told her everything that happened, and she said, well, that's terrible. Why would you boys do that? So Mom went over to this man's house Come to find out, his wife had just died, and he was really blue, and this was the cream on top of the cake. And Mom says, I'll clean your house for you. So my mom went in there and straightened everything up and took responsibility when the other mothers never got involved.
Yeah. Wow.
So after that, I went to see the older boys at his place. He had a big fig tree, and I can still remember that. And I heard him yelling, crying out, "Mom, Mom, 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 let me out, let me out." And she had locked him in the garage and called the police.
What?
She says, I can't control you anymore. So I called the police. They're coming to get you. I'll never do it again, Mom. I'll never do it again. Scared me to pieces.
What?
So I left that place and went back home. I never saw him again.
What? Do you think she was just messing with him? Or do you think
No, I don't.
She really did?
She really did it. She'd been trying to control him for some time.
Wow.
And he was Hispanic.
How old was that kid?
He would have been about 10, maybe
Wow.
11.
Whew.
So he ended up in detention somewhere.
And that happened to you when you were 4?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Grandpa.
That's before well, you have to understand, Mom, being as young as she was
Yeah.
learning how to be a mom. Now think about where you were when you were 17.
She would have been 21 if you were 4, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's young.
Yeah.
That's young for a mother. Wow. I was in college.
Yeah.
You know, that's crazy.
Yeah, and so you have to also remember that Mother had 5 other children afterwards.
Okay, 1 second here. I'm gonna pause it.
Things that you start.
All right, we're good.
One of the things that happened, and I don't know the age, but it was something like 3
Okay.
years old.
Wow.
And Mom was trying to control me because I wanted to wander off all the time.
Yeah.
And so she hooked me up to the clothesline with a dog chain type thing.
What?
Yeah. And so, according to her telling me the story, she said she'd check on me while she was doing other things in the house. And she came out and I had gotten out of that thing. And she said, I didn't know what happened to you. Where'd you go? And we were on Main Street in L.A. It's where we were living at the time.
What's it? Is this Bellflower?
No, this is in Los Angeles.
In L.A.?
Yeah, when we first came.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so when she started screaming for me, calling my name, running all over, trying to find out where I was.
Yeah.
And she said, there I was across that busy road on the other side, standing there watching the traffic.
Whoa.
And she said, I said, well, Mom, what did you do? And she said, I kept saying over and over, don't move. I'll come get you. Don't move.
Wow.
She says, I was so afraid you'd see me come across and get hit by a car.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's one of the early memories.
What were you doing, Grandpa? Why were you hung on a clothesline by a dog chain? That's crazy. So you're 3.
I'm about 3.
So that's one of your earliest memories then.
Yeah.
Probably one of your earliest memories.
3 or 4, right in that era.
Wow.
And another thing that happened was that we were staying with my aunt and uncle, and he was a projectionist for a movie theater.
Uh-huh.
So he worked nights and slept in the daytime. And so we didn't have anything to do. You didn't have anything to do.
Yeah.
When you're a little kid, and I'm wandering around the house, and there was no park or anything to go to. And so I went in the bedroom, and he was laying there asleep. And there was a little small, short ruler on the table.
Yeah.
And I thought, So I think I'll just wake him up. So I took the little ruler and whacked him across the head.
Whoa.
And he came up, straight up out of bed, and started yelling, and he's going to get me. And my mom came up. My mom came up and says, "Don't you hurt him. Don't you hurt him." And I can't remember his name now. because she married more than one time.
Grandma's bringing us ice cream here.
Yeah. But anyway, he said, mark my words, he'll be in jail by the time he's a teenager.
He was talking about you.
Yes. He said, he'll be a criminal. I'm sure of it.
You never went to jail, Grandpa. You proved him wrong.
Yeah, that's true.
But you shouldn't have whacked him with a ruler.
Yeah.
So what'd your mom say?
She said, you don't do that again.
And how old were you when you did that? You're such a troublemaker, Grandpa. How'd you not go in jail, huh?
I don't know. Because that's the least I did.
Oh, goodness.
And there was some others and stuff later. But I was probably 5 years old.
Okay. So we're at age. What was going on at age 5, age 6? In your younger years, where were you at? You're in California.
We moved out of the house with my aunt.
Okay.
Moved into the rental on Main Street.
What city was this in LA?
It's Los Angeles.
It was just Los Angeles?
Yeah.
Like LA?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Downtown.
Got it. Downtown.
And so the war started. And that changed everything.
World War II.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so when World War II came, I was 6 years old. And Dad went to work for what they called the Army Air Forces. Actually, it may have been earlier than that because we were making aircraft for Britain before we got in the war.
Wow.
So he worked down there with his skills as a carpenter, preparing material for building aircraft.
Why were we building aircraft for Britain back then?
Because they were about to go under.
From the war, or?
See, the war had already been going on since '39.
Right.
And so Britain was fighting it all by themselves then.
We were just building planes for them, like, sorry, here's some planes.
So we became what's called the country that lend lease, which I don't know how Roosevelt got it through because it was a great movement. We are not going to get involved. Really, we don't want to get involved in this thing. And so there was a whole movement in the country. And so he had to get around that. And the way he did it was, we cannot let this democratic country just go under. We can at least provide them with materiel. And so we started building aircraft for them and also ships. And
naval.
We turned over a whole bunch of World War I, not such great boats, but they were desperate. They needed it.
Right. Wow.
And all of that's history now. You can look it up on the internet or someplace.
The Google, yeah.
Google it, and you'll see how that progressed. And eventually, we were still staying out of it until Pearl Harbor.
Right.
And December 7th, 1941, we were bombed. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have a choice then. We were in. And the first thing that stupid Hitler did, because he was a friend of Japan, and thought, well, we'll just take them all on. And so he declared war on us at the same time.
Right. Man. So, your dad, when you were age 5, age 6, was down in L.A., and so what company was that building aircraft? Was it Lockheed and Northrop?
No, Voight.
Voight. V-O-I-T. Okay. And so they had some type of manufacturing airfield out there where they were building planes.
And it was really financed by the government. Because remember, we're still in depression. Nobody's got any money.
Right. Yeah, how did they do that?
They just started writing money.
Bonds?
Yeah. I actually was involved in bond drives, and you put 10 cents in, and you get a stamp, and you put it in this little book, and
in 20 years, it was worth 20 cents.
Yeah. So that was pretty much it. And so things were picking up for Dad, and he bought 3/4 of an acre of land in Bell Gardens, and that's how we moved there.
I see. Okay.
And
I never knew how you got there.
yeah, and he built about half of a house, ran out of money, and so we lived in that half a house.
And he built that himself.
Oh yeah.
You just bought the materials, started building it one day.
Yeah.
So you were staying in downtown while he bought that acre and was building.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have pictures of, he got a couple wing boxes from Voight, or Army Air Forces. They gave it to him, just if you wanted it, then he hauled it.
What's a wing box?
It carried wings. They transported aircraft wings.
Yeah, I'll take some more coffee. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we had that little one. They came out pretty small.
Grandpa gave me a double shot espresso. Now I'm not going to sleep until tomorrow, 10 a.m.
I'll make you a regular one.
Thank you, Grandma.
But anyway,
So hold on. What did Voight? What does that stand for? Was that just a name? Someone's last name?
it's a company that eventually took over the Army Air Forces. See, the Army was running the whole thing, and this small aircraft company was kind of the front for it,
Okay.
if I understand it right.
Okay.
And so, in fact, we even moved down to San Diego, because that's where it was,
Yeah.
and lived in a trailer. And that's another story.
Well, that's a story I want to hear eventually. That's what this is all about. This is all the stories. Okay, so they just gave him a giant empty wing box for wood use, or did it have stuff in it?
No, they were empty.
So he repurposed it for wood.
Yeah, and he took it in, and he made the first mobile home.
What?
Yeah, we lived in it.
Really?
Yeah. Went inside, finished it off. I think he put an axle under it. I'm not really sure. I have photos of it.
You have photos?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to see those.
Yeah. And the photos are not very good shape, but it shows them offloading the wing boxes. Mm-hmm. And my uncle George was helping him. And both of them are in their 20s or 30s.
Wow.
But anyway,
so that's age 6, around then.
yeah. Well, here's one more thing that happened. We were living in a mobile home before we built that.
That he built. Okay.
Yeah, and if we had it, I didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were right at, can't think of the name of it, Torrey Pines.
What is that?
That's near San Diego.
Okay.
And the big thing with my mom was that she's afraid of water. To start with, she wouldn't even go in the ocean and walk. And so she said, do not go up on those cliffs. And, you don't tell a kid, you do not do this, or you better not do that. So the very thing she said not to do, that's what I did. So the bunch of us kids, we're all barefooted. We come up there, and they have those little goat heads, Oh, those are terrible.
Yeah, they're the worst.
And I was always getting one on my feet. And so I kept falling farther behind the other boys. And it was me and one other boy and another one who was just ahead of us. And then there were like 4 or 5 boys ahead of them. Uh-huh. And we're just walking along the edge of the cliffs. Well, the third boy, who was just ahead of us two, slipped over the edge. And grabbed a hold of some shrubs or whatever and was hanging on for dear life. And so the other boys had gone on. So here's us two and this kid hanging on. And so bravely I said, you help him and I'll go get the other boys. And the kid with me said, no, you help him. I'm going to go get the other boys. And he took off running.
Oh. So
I thought, now what do I do? And the sand had gotten the guy's eyes. He couldn't see.
Yeah.
And so he said, help me, help me, help me. I said, oh, okay. So I reached down and he grabbed a hold of my hand and I had a hold of his.
Yeah.
And I said, we're going to get help. Don't do anything because we'll both go over the edge.
Yeah.
And so I'm holding him during all this time. And finally the other boys came and we got him up out of there and home.
Whoa. How far was the drop?
About 500 feet.
What?
Oh, yeah. It was a cliff.
You would have died.
Oh, yeah.
What?
Yeah. So here's the kid clincher, though. So I get home and Mom sees me coming down off the cliffs. She's so angry.
Oh.
She takes me and turns me over her knee and gives me the swat, 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 swat. And just about when she was finished, there was a knock on the door. And Mrs. Allee, yes, I just want to thank your son for saving my boy's life. And then Mom cried, and she cried, and then Mom came to me and said, I'm sorry.
You didn't try to explain yourself? Mom, I was saving someone's life, Mom.
Yeah.
Wow.
Too late. But anyway, that's a true story.
That's amazing.
True story.
You saved someone's life. Wow. What was his name?
I don't know.
You don't remember his name?
Don't remember.
That was in Torrey Pines, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay, so what was life like after the mobile home and when you were in your Bell Gardens house? How long did it take your dad to build it?
Pretty fast, really.
Yeah. And what kind of house are we talking?
Regular house. Foundation.
2 bedroom?
1 bedroom.
1 bedroom, okay.
Kitchen. Half the house was finished. Tar paper down the side. With preparation, when the money came in, we'd finish the house, which it never happened until the end of the war.
Okay.
And behind us was that's another whole story, but there was a walnut orchard and an orange orchard.
Oh, wow.
And so as a kid, I had a lot of fun there. And we were right on the edge of the Rio Hondo River.
Thank you, Grandma.
And it was all grown up with bamboo. So we had hideaways and all kinds of stuff we played in as little kids.
The Rio Hondo?
Rio Hondo River.
Down there in L.A.? Is that still...
Still there.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. So did you guys go get walnuts and oranges
and get in trouble? Yes, we did.
Free food. Wow. Okay. So you lived in that house for...
But we moved.
So how many years were you in that house that he built?
Until we came to Oregon.
Wow.
But
That's when he became the second story man.
What?
Before they moved. Tell him about the second story jobs you did.
I haven't got into that yet.
Okay. That's why they moved.
We're doing a full autobiography, Grandma.
Okay.
The whole thing.
We ended up moving to Puente in the middle of all this. My grandparents moved into our house during the war, and we lived in a Japanese house in Puente because Dad was working now in a different aircraft plant owned by Ben Crosby.
This is in California still.
Mm-hmm. But anyway,
A Japanese house? What do you mean?
somebody had been interned.
And then taken out to the
What-
Lone Pine,
Mhm.
the camp where they kept him?
Uh-huh.
And he had what? How did that happen? They were just giving houses?
Yeah, they just turned them loose.
What?
I don't know how they paid for it, but
Wow.
it was in the middle of a field. I remember that.
Seriously.
And all kinds of Japanese newspapers up in the attic. And had a bathtub outside. And I looked at that thing with my dad and I said, Dad, what is that? He said, well, that's a bathtub. I said, well, why is that outside? And he said, well, they're different than we are. I said, well, what do you mean different? He said, they all take their bath together. What? And it was a communal bathtub.
Wow.
It was big as, I'd say, about 6 foot.
Really?
Yeah.
Half this room.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And what they would do is they build a fire under it and heat the water like a little swimming area.
Yeah.
And then the whole family would get in and take a bath.
So it was propped up on something?
Yeah, it had foundation around the edge. And so it had a place to build a fire underneath.
How deep we talking? If I stood in it, would it come up to my knee or
No, it'd
more shallow than that?
No, it'd be a little more. It'd probably come up to your thigh.
Okay. Interesting. A giant communal outdoor bathtub. Okay.
Yeah. And while we're living there, the pickers, we called them the pickers, would come and pick the onions and such around us.
Uh-huh.
And so as two kids after school, we'd get right out there and say, can we help, and whatever. So they finally said, well, if you'll dig up the ones we miss, we'll give you 10 cents a day. A day, yeah.
And what year was this?
This would be 1941, 42.
During the World War.
Yeah, so
Okay.
here's my brother Jack and me, because he's born now in 38.
Okay.
And we used, I don't remember what it was, like a stick or something. And we'd go behind them, and when they were pulling them, they were really pulling them hard. Sometimes they would stick into the ground, hard ground. And we'd dig them out. So those Hispanics nicknamed my brother and me. I was nicknamed Rotten.
Rotten?
Rotten, yeah.
Rotten?
And my
Okay.
brother was nicknamed Jappy.
Ah, okay.
Because when he laughed, his eyes went closed.
Wow.
There's a little difference in us.
Yeah.
And there was a field of, not turnips, but what's the red fruit, Betty?
Beets?
Beets.
Beets.
A beet field.
So you had onions around you, you had beets around you?
Yeah, on the farther area. So we're out there in the beet field one day, and the guy said, you ever eating beets? And I said, I don't know. And I said, well, what do they taste like? He said, well, just wipe them off and give it a bite. And I learned to eat beets that had never been cooked.
Raw?
Raw.
You ate raw beets like an apple?
Yeah.
You just bit into it?
Yeah.
Was it good?
Yeah, I wasn't easily suggested to, but yes, that's what I did.
On some occasions, I would bite into beets.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But those are just little events,
Yeah.
that you remember.
Yeah, absolutely. Man. All right, I'm going to give it a pause here. Okay, we're back from a quick break. Grandpa's got another story for us.
Okay, now this is when I'm about 8 or 9, going on 10. And I had gotten in a wrong crowd. And what was happening was I was easily influenced, and these boys were criminals, actually. And I was small, because I was still a small kid.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could have been about 7. And what they would do is they'd take me and they'd go to a house they wanted to break into. And so they would shinny me up the upper story to go in the upper story window. Then I would come down and unlock the door so they could go in and rob the place.
Whoa.
And so I was a part of that neighborhood gang for quite some time. Well, my dad smelled a rat. He knew something was wrong, and he didn't know what.
Yeah.
Said, I don't want you hanging out with those kids anymore. I don't trust them. And I said, okay, Dad, okay. And as soon as he finished, I'd take off and be with him. So then my dad had a temper. He could get mad. And he got really angry with me. And so this was like, second or third time. He said, all right, I told you. Come on. He took me by the arm, took me out to the shed, took off his belt, turned me over I don't know what, and started wailing the daylights out of me for not obeying him. And my mother was at the door saying, that's enough, Hack, that's enough. That's enough. You know you're strong. That's enough. And when I heard that, I raised this like I was being killed. Let him go now. Let him go.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I was still running with him all the way up until the time to go to Oregon.
How about when you broke into the man's house and tore everything up?
I did.
Oh, yeah, he told that one. How old were these kids you're running with? You were 7.
Yeah, and they were about 11, 12.
Where
13.
do you find these kids? They're just on your street?
Yeah.
Just everybody, just families?
Yeah.
And their kids?
Yeah.
And where'd you guys meet? Just kicking rocks on the road?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay.
Okay, so now they decided they were going to hit our next door neighbor's house. And I said, no, you're not doing that. Not right next door. He said, well, he's gone a lot of times. And I think he's got lots of good stuff in that shed back there. And I said, no, I'm not going to be a part of that.
Yeah.
I got really scared. And this part of the story will be a meaningful one to you, Christian, because they said, well, come, we just broke in. Come on, I'll show you. So they had broke in, and there was just all kinds of great stuff. And we were poor. There was an electric train there, full one. They said, you want the train? I said, yeah, but I'm not touching it. He said, well, what do you want? I said, I don't want anything. He said, this is my next door neighbor. I'm not getting involved in this one.
Yeah.
So I went home. And they did their stuff and took the stuff and all this, left it open. Nobody caught them. And a couple of days later, the neighbor came back from a business thing and flipped out. The whole thing was a disaster. Comes over to my dad and says, your son broke into my garage and stole all this stuff. And Dad grabbed me by the arm, dragged me up to this guy, and he said, now, I want to ask you once. Did you break into that garage of his and steal stuff out of it? I'd been in there, but I never took a thing. And I said, no, Dad. I'll never forget this. My dad's tough. And he turned to this guy and he said, I don't want to hear about this again. My son doesn't lie to me.
Whew. Wow.
Well, that's the thing to change me. And when I went home, I got down on my knees. I said, thanks for helping me with this, and I'll never steal again.
Wow.
And it wasn't long after that we moved to Oregon.
Wow. Whew.
But see, I learned a terrific lesson that you believe until you have evidence to the contrary. And if your son or your daughter says something, you look them in the eye and say, you will tell me the truth, won't you?
Yeah.
Even if it's bad news and you get a bad report, it's better than a lie.
Yeah, I agree.
So anyway, it wasn't long after that Dad said the war was coming to an end. We were I would be 10 years old in 1945.
Wow.
And everything was changing now in California. And Dad heard about work up in Oregon. And he just finished the house, completed. Poor Mom. She now had we had an outhouse. We didn't even have a bathroom in that house.
Uh-huh.
And water was outside. You had to haul it in. Well, anyway, Dad came home one day from work and he said, oh, by the way, I sold the house. And Mother says, what? You mean the house with the beautiful hardwood floor and all those nice rooms and things? He said, yeah, we're moving. She said, where to? He says, we're going to Oregon.
Wow.
And so it sold within 30 days, and we got in. Dad went over to Sears and bought a trailer, brand new. And you couldn't buy a car. There were no cars, only used ones, because they hadn't been building them all during the war.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Only military. And so he went in, and it was a completely refurbished Model A Ford, and he bought it because now he had some money.
Right.
And he took me and my brother Jack. My sister was just a young girl. Did it stop?
I'm looking up the Model A Ford right now.
It was a 31.
1931?
Yeah.
1931.
Sedan.
And so he went to Sears.
Oh, to get a trailer.
Right. So what kind of, just like a standard trailer? Closed?
No, it was what do you call? Steak sides.
Oh, steak sides. Okay.
Okay.
Wow.
And well, here we are. I mean, we feel like we're millionaires. I mean, I think Dad got $2,500 for the house. And he said, okay, boys, it's going to be cold up there.
It's just you and Jack.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he says, now you pick you out one of these coats, each of you.
You get to pick.
Oh, we got to pick.
Where was this?
This was at Sears. So we're like, whoa, we get to pick a coat? And, well, my favorite color is blue. How about you, Jack? Mine's red. Okay, I'll get a blue one. You get a red one.
Wow.
And it was a thick jacket, you know, and we each got one. And we headed off. When I was 10, 11, going on 11, we headed for Oregon. Stopped in San Francisco. My dad was into beverages of a great amount of alcohol.
Ah, I see. Okay.
Okay, so, and we had a cousin that was traveling with us, and her boyfriend, and my mother.
You guys all fat in that?
And yes, and my mother, and my brother, and my sister, and my dad. Okay, so here we are in San Francisco. And Dad, he's feeling great. He says, we're going to go to one of those fancy restaurants. And I thought, boy, this is going to be so great. It was Chinese.
Okay.
I'd never seen a Chinese anything up until this point in my life. And they brought the food out, and I looked at it and went, what is this? And I wouldn't eat it. I looked at him,
You didn't eat it?
no. And Dad said, no, it's okay. You can eat it now. That looks funny. I don't think I'll eat it. So.
And that was in San Francisco.
Yeah, so then we started up the coast, and they stopped to get drinks, you know, as they're going along. And Dad was leaning up. This is so funny. It really wasn't funny, but it's funny. He was leaning up against the door frame of that Model A, the rear door. And my brother Jack reached over and grabbed the door and slammed it shut on my dad's thumb.
Oh.
And those doors, they latched. I mean, when they went closed, they really latched.
Right, yeah.
So here's my dad jumping up and down saying, open the door, open the door.
Oh.
And then finally my brother opened the door. Dad's thumb was mashed pretty good.
Oh.
And he later cut a little hole in the top to let the material out
Yeah.
as we traveled down the road.
Ow.
That's another one of those events.
What? Why did Jack shut the door? As a prank or on accident?
No, he just thought it was he should do that. It was time to shut the door.
Wow. So how much younger was Jack than you?
3.5 years.
Younger.
Yeah.
Okay. So at that time, when you were traveling up the coast, you would have been how old?
10, 11, about 11.
Okay, so he was 8-ish, 7.5. Okay.
And my sister is same age as Betty, so she would be 79 now. So that
Who's
makes
this?
my sister Gloria.
Okay.
And the other three were born in Oregon.
Okay, everybody else.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was born in Minnesota. Jack was born at White Memorial in California. Gloria was born in Allee County Hospital in Los Angeles. And then my brother Tim and Noreen and Bobby were all born in Eugene, Oregon.
Wow. You got a lot of siblings, Grandpa.
Yeah, 5.
That's a lot. It's a big family.
Yeah.
Okay. So, continuing your trip up the coast, tell me about your initial arrival to Eugene.
Okay.
That's where you went, straight to Eugene, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about Eugene.
So here's what here's what happened. We were in Northern California, and like I said, we had a little money, so we could rent a place to stay at night.
Yeah.
And Dad kept talking about how he'd like to own little cabins and rent them out and start a new life. And
Yeah.
I can still remember him talking about that, but it never materialized. So we get across the border and we're heading, we had been at Eureka, which is on the coast, and we went inland through Grants Pass and over, and there was no interstates back in those days.
Right.
And so we took I guess it would have been 99. We went up toward Eugene. Now Eugene is not as far away as San Francisco from LA. Eugene was fairly close to the center of the state.
Uh-huh.
And so we arrived. Now, my uncle George and my Aunt Ethel had already been up there quite a few, must have been at least months, if not a couple of years. And they had 5 acres in Eugene up on the backside of Spencer's Butte. And so they said, well, you can put whatever you're going to stay in on our land. We got enough room. So Dad went down to the war surplus, got a squad tent, and brought it up, bought some lumber, built a frame around it and a floor for it. And it's now winter,
And you just had a tent covering
And
it.
so we got a tent.
Okay.
We put a stove inside, and I can't remember whether I had gone to school or I don't remember about the school business, but I do remember school eventually there. And but anyway, so Christmas came, and Dad's still feeling pretty good. He had bought 3/4 of an acre in Eugene,
Okay.
and was planning to build a house. So he bought me for Christmas a bow and arrow.
Whoa.
I thought, man, we are rich. And so I was just having a big time, and my cousin Georgie was there already, and he had to try out my bow and arrow, and sure enough, busted it.
No.
Yeah.
Was this the cousin that drove up with you?
No, he was a
Different one.
different one. Yeah, the one I grew up with up there. And so I felt terrible. I finally had something, and now it's
He
gone.
busted it. What did he do?
Pulled it too far.
Oh.
It was not a very,
Snap the frame?
yeah.
No. Okay.
So anyway, we spent the winter in a tent.
How,
And it
how do you
rained.
manage that? How do you manage that? How does that work?
It works like you don't go outside.
How big are we talking? You have a whole family.
A squad tent.
Like in the war, there's kind of like a sergeant's tent, right?
Yeah, or the officer's tent.
Officer's tent, okay.
Yeah.
So it's a bit bigger. You said
It's bigger than the other ones, yeah. And this was common in those days.
Really?
After the war, yeah, people would just go out and buy them. They could get them for nothing. And so while they were preparing to build a house, they'd go buy one of these things and stay in it until they could get into their house. So we spent the whole winter. But the problem is Oregon rains, so
That was my next question. How do you keep the water out?
well, you have to know what you're doing, but you don't want to have your area right in the way of the flow of water.
Yeah.
But what you do have is that, and the smart part, is you put a wood area around the base of the tent.
Okay.
Then you have a wood floor and almost like a house.
So when it got rained on, though, straight on the tent,
Yeah.
was it waterproof and it just kind of, they were
As
made
long-
that way?
As long as you don't do this.
What's that?
If you reach up on a tent and you do this, it'll leak. So we were having a big time.
What?
Drip, 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 drip. Who touched the tent?
Really?
Oh yeah, if you're in a tent and it's raining and you run your finger across it, it draws the water right through the tent.
Whoa. And so it didn't come through if you didn't do that, huh?
No.
Interesting. So did you ever go to that war surplus with your dad ever?
No, I didn't, but I have been to them before.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm just curious as to what it was like at the time. Right after the war.
I can because I was at other ones. The thing that after the Second World War and even after Korea, there was a lot of material that was sold for dirt cheap.
Really?
Yeah, I can still remember back in back in Bell Gardens, where they would come in with a pickup truck that would tilt full of gas masks. And they would come up to the edge of the Rio Hondo River and just dump it
Into the river?
into the river.
What?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Nobody stopped them. They just go in there and dump it. Because nobody's going to use a gas mask.
Yeah. What's anyone going to use that for? Wow. So, back when you lived there, did you pick up the masks and,
Oh, yeah.
and play with them?
Yes, oh, yeah.
All
Yeah.
you little kids on the
Oh, yeah.
that lived against the river?
Oh, yeah.
That's funny.
In fact, we had what was during the war, we had a little game we played. We took orange crates
Uh-huh.
and framed a thing that would look like an aircraft.
Yeah.
And we could get down in the crate and pretend to be machine gunners.
Yeah.
And I had a falling out with one of my kids' buddies. And he said, I don't want to play with you anymore. I'm leaving. I said, go. I don't want to be around you. So off he goes. About 3 or 4 days later, he comes back, kind of hangdog, and he says, Rodney, he says, can I come back? And I said, I guess so. He said, you're the one that makes it all fun. Because I have more of an imagination.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, you've always loved sci-fi and...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's just those first years that I remember. As I'm doing my book, I in the rough draft, I will be adding stuff in
Okay.
because of the fact that you just don't remember everything at once.
Oh, yeah, no. And it's moments like how I just brought up the masks in the river.
Yeah.
Where it'll bring up a memory.
Yeah.
Like, we used to play with them. It's just stuff you're gonna remember as time goes on, or as the memory is brought up, or I say something. So.
In World War II, we helped the war effort.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the jobs that we had was to take aluminum wherever we could find it and roll it into a ball.
Yeah.
As big as we could get. And then we took it in someplace and they used it for making aircraft.
So there's just aluminum laying around?
Yeah, and cigarette packages were covered with aluminum.
Right, okay.
And so we would just peel it or wherever we could find it, little sheets of it. And then the other thing was string. What I never did figure out what they used the string for, but you'd make a ball of string.
Yeah.
And I still have my token, my
you turn the string in and get something?
no, it was during the war, Betty. Ration books.
Oh.
I still have the ration books from.
You have it?
Yes.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
So you'll be able to photograph those
Yeah.
from the Second World War.
That's amazing.
Now there was no gas. No gas. Dad got every one of the gas tags. Nobody.
Oh, he took them all out.
Oh yeah, I used all
Okay.
those and
Used them.
some things like shoes.
Yeah, shoe ration?
Oh yeah.
Coupons?
Oh yeah. Oh
What?
yeah. Yeah, I didn't even tell you about Black Market Joe.
Black Market Joe?
Yeah.
Who's that?
He had a store, and he was on the ration board. This is Second World War.
Okay, he's an old man? Who is this guy?
He wasn't that old.
Okay, how old is he?
He was about, I'd say 30s, maybe 35, something like that.
He was on the ration board?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, that meant he doled out ration food.
Oh, okay.
And if you had
Oh,
wherewithal.
got it.
In fact, there was a guy preaching here in Palmdale. He was at the church right next to the mall. And we got to talking one day, and I said, yeah, I grew up in Bell Gardens. He said, you did? I said, yeah. He said, so did I. I said, did you really? I said, do you remember Black Market Joe? He says, now I know you lived there.
Whoa. What?
Yeah, and so if you had the money and you were out of sugar, you give him a little extra, and he'd slip it to you.
Seriously?
And he was Cuban.
Why? Was it military? Ran by the military?
No, it was by the federal government.
So every city had like a council.
Yeah.
Okay. Whoa.
And the funny part is,
Yeah, I'll take some more. Thank you.
which I didn't tell you, is that I swiped a peach off of his his store one day.
Whoa.
And it was a beautiful peach. And I walked home with it, peach in hand, like a dummy. I walked into the kitchen. Mom looked at me and said, where'd you get that? Oh, I found it, Mom. Where'd you find it? Well, just by the road. No, you didn't find it by the road. Where did you get it? Well, Joe has a whole bunch of these, and I didn't think he'd miss one.
What?
Yeah. And so she said, well, you got to take it back. Oh, Mom, I can't take it back. Yes, you are. So Mom says, I'm going with you. Let's go. And I was probably 7,
Yeah.
8, something like that. So here I'm carrying this peach, going back to this Joe's Market, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. He's gonna be mad at me.
Yeah.
Because I spent a lot of time in that store. So I walked in, and Mom says to him, I think this belongs to you, Joe. And he looks over and says, yeah, I saw him take it. And
What?
yeah. She said, anyway, it was the wrong thing for him to do, and he wants to apologize and give it back to you. He said, okay. So I put the peach back and went home. When I went back to the store, Joe says, "Son, would you like a job?" I said, "Well, yeah. Oh, what kind of job?" He said, "Well," he said, "my wife left and I need some help at my house." And so he had me come to his house and clean.
Really?
Yeah, so I'm at his house, cleaning his house, thinking, I got a job. And I was working, and I looked up on the top of his refrigerator, and right on top of the refrigerator was a
Keyboard?
no, crawly.
Spider?
No. What do you get in New England?
You do what?
What do they sell in New England?
Food? Is it food?
Yeah,
Crabs or lobster?
not crabs, but
Lobster?
lobster.
Oh, a giant lobster.
Yeah, it was a giant lobster sitting on top of it. And I thought, what in the world is that thing? And he came home and I said, what, Joe, what is that? He said, well, that's a lobster. Have you never seen one? I said, no. Well, let me show you. No.
They're like creatures from outer space. Huh?
Yeah, so, but
Wow.
anyway.
So he was on the ration board, doled out rations, and ran a store.
Oh, yeah.
What kind of store? What
A little corner grocery store.
Wow. Cuban guy.
Yeah.
So the rations, did they give it to local grocers to dole out or what?
Yes, and you had to have little stickers. If you didn't have the sticker, you couldn't buy the commodity.
Oh.
So if you wanted flour, you had to have a flour sticker, or what if that was rationed, whatever was being rationed. Tires, for example, were rationed. Gasoline was rationed. You could only get so much gasoline a month.
Did he dole those ones out too?
They were in the book,
Okay.
so you dole out the book.
Interesting.
But his
Man,
biggest
you
issue was dealing with just the everyday people. Well, there was a bigger market in Bell Gardens, but everybody dealt with him.
That is so interesting. So you get the book and you'd go to him for food, right?
Yeah.
Did it work at all grocers?
Yes.
It did.
Yes.
Okay.
So you would go and he'd say, well, now that's 2 stamps for the sugar. Sugar was rationed.
Right.
He said, now you're going to have 2 stamps. You only got 1.
And you'd have to pay
Well,
him.
what are we going to do?
Yeah. So there's a middle ground.
He
Slip
said,
him some
well,
money.
I'll tell you, your new book will be coming out at the end of the month. If you'll just put 50 cents for that, I think we can work something out.
Oh, wow.
He never did get caught,
Huh.
because to get caught, you go to jail.
Right. Yeah. That sounds like it would have been a pretty, like most, well, I don't know. Would most of them have done that? Or was that very uncommon, you think?
I don't know. I think it was more common than we realize,
Right.
and that there were a lot of people who didn't do it.
Yeah.
But, it was, you couldn't buy a car. There were no cars.
Huh.
No new cars. They stopped making them in 1941. And so you could buy a 41 Ford in 1940, which, like today,
Right.
you could buy a 2020 car sometime this year.
Right.
But when you got to that year, you couldn't buy one.
How different were the cars year to year? Like 35 to like 41. Were there large leaps in like, wow, this is like way different?
No, not really, but there was categories. You had what people call the poor man's cars,
Mm-hmm.
Ford and Chevrolet, Plymouth. You had next step up, Dodge, Buick, Pontiac, Mercury. That's the next step up.
Right. That's medium in the middle. Okay.
Yeah. So, but let's say you had a little money. I'll say, well, you're going to have, well, how about a Cadillac and a Lincoln and a Chrysler? That would be the upper end of American cars. Now, if you were an exotic car guy, you would buy, in the 30s, you'd buy a Cord, an Auburn.
A what?
Cord, an Auburn, a Duesenberry. They were all handmade.
What are these brands?
Well, they're all gone. Yeah, see, but if you could find one, there was a guy sold a Cord here in Lancaster for a .38 revolver. He just traded it, not realizing it one day it would be worth a fortune.
Wow.
And it was turbocharged. I mean, they were race car type cars.
Yeah.
And so those are the breakdowns of what the cars were like.
Okay. Because the car went through a lot of rapid changes in like 20, 30 years. You know, you went from a Model A Ford, a four-door Model A Ford that looks like, I mean, when was the first Model T built?
1911.
Yeah, like 1911. So this is only 30 years after. And so you went from Model A's.
The body changes took place in the 30s. You went from, for example, a 35 Ford.
Yeah.
You would not recognize it as akin to a Model A.
Right.
Model A had a square front end. It was a sloping front end to a 35, 36, 37. I owned a 32 Plymouth.
Wow.
I owned a 38 Chevy. I owned a 39 Plymouth, two 39 Plymouths, two 39s, and one 40 Plymouth, a 41 Ford.
Wow.
38 Chevrolet. I told somebody the other day, I think
a lot of cars.
I think I owned about 30.
30 cars?
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
Some of them very short time. The amazing thing is longevity of the engine.
Right.
You have how many miles on yours?
244,000.
Okay. When a car got between 40 and 50,000,
yeah,
you dumped it.
Really?
Because it started drinking oil like going out of style. And the tolerances were so large that if your rings started to go, the whole engine would be short of lubrication.
Wow.
And so everybody, at that time when I was growing up, they'd say, well, how many miles you got on that? Oh, we got 35,000. We're going to just ready to turn over 40. You better get rid of it. It's going to be a gas hog. It's going to be a pit.
So what did they used to do with cars like that back in the day? Just crush for metal?
Sometimes.
Pick for parts?
Sometimes they did a pick apart, yeah. Okay. And if you can get them now, you retool them. Well, a lot of things that happened, like with Chevrolet and Ford, you would go in and rebore them. You'd put in a sleeve.
Right.
And now the tolerances are such that, and the oils that you use now are so superior that you don't have all these oil burners. Mm-hmm. It used to be you'd go down the street and 3 or 4 of the cars ahead of you would be blowing white smoke, which meant
burning oil.
They're burning oil.
Right.
It's time to get rid of it.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So did the price reflect that? Or
yeah.
They were kind of cheap cars?
Well,
affordable?
Yeah, affordable. I bought a 1968 Chevy Malibu for $3,100. bought that Volkswagen for $2,700. Bought a Volkswagen Bug for $1,800.
Huh.
That's in my lifetime.
You're gonna have to drop.
And they were new. I mean, these were not used.
Brand new.
Yes.
Whoa.
And so, if you were to buy a premium car at those days,
Yeah.
you could spend $6,000, maybe $7,000 would be top dollar.
Like a Lincoln, Cadillac.
Yeah.
Those type of cars.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And so, trucks were always popular. Dad liked Studebaker.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's gone, of course. But the companies that didn't last were the ones who didn't keep the designs up. They could be real dependable, but they're ugly.
Right.
And nobody wanted them.
Right. Yeah.
Like the Hudson, for example. They had a hot car called the Hudson Hornet.
Hey, the Hornet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that car looked awesome. That was the exact Hudson car I was thinking of when you said Hudson. Hudson Hornet.
Yeah.
Whew. It's a good looking car.
Yeah, and they had Chrysler Terraplane. And you say, Terraplane, what's that? Terror, round,
Right.
plane, aircraft.
What did it look like? A plane on the ground?
Yeah, sort of.
Who made it?
Chrysler.
Chrysler Terraplane. Ooh, wow. Looks slick. It
Yeah.
looks like those old Rolls Royces. Those really fancy ones.
And the same is true of all the companies started going for style.
Uh-huh.
So they would start styling their cars more than making them capable of just being a utilitarian.
Right.
So you'd say, well, I want one that looks decent.
Right.
You know, I don't want a squared off nose. For example, my 32 Plymouth
Yeah.
was a coupe. There was something wrong with the carburation I never got fixed. But top speed was 45 miles an hour. You couldn't go any faster.
Wow.
So there was something wrong with it because it should do at least 60, 70.
When did you see that shift in away from utility and into we care about the looks of our car?
30s.
In the 30s?
Yeah, middle 30s, late 30s. That's like my 41 Ford, very stylish. And your 46 Ford, another stylish car.
Wow.
And then when you went into the 50s, it's funny how they advertised. The Ford would put Ford at the top and just these words, "It's coming."
What?
We go. Because we're all desperate for new cars.
Yeah.
Whoa, what's coming? And then the next time it says a little bit bigger print. Remember, it's coming.
What?
And so in 1949, they came out with this new design. And we were just, oh, this is unbelievable. It had aircraft lighting on the dash, where literally it was like a green. We're like, whoa.
Wow.
This is a cool car.
Yeah.
And so it became very big seller.
And what car was this?
It was a Ford,
Oh, okay.
1949 Ford.
Wow.
And now the most classic car before that was a, later, 47 Chevy.
Wow.
And
Yeah, this thing does look cool.
and Plymouth, Dad used to say, never buy a Plymouth. I said, Dad, what are you talking about? He said, when I grew up, Dad used to own a garage.
Uh-huh.
He and a partner. And he said, I don't know what it is about them. But he said, when the temperature gets about 10 above or about 10 below, you can't start them for anything. They will not start.
This is the Plymouth.
The Plymouth.
Okay.
And I said, well, yeah, what about a Chevy? Oh, it'll start. Oh, what about a Ford? Oh, it'll start. It's just a Chevy. Well, what about the Chrysler or the Dodge? The Plymouth is a Chrysler product.
Right.
But it just, and it doesn't, they don't make it anymore. It's
Right.
gone.
Yeah, they're gone. They're gone. Wow.
And I had a 39, oh, this is funny. I had a 39 Pontiac coupe that belonged to my cousin who sold it to me. Had dual carburation on it. That was a big deal back then.
Right.
Okay, so it's a straight 8, which meant when you were accelerating, it was starved for fuel. But with 2 carburetors, you had double the impact of the gasoline going in. So I'd get up next to these Ford V8s. On a drag? With that old thing? No, you don't have a chance. I got a V8. Oh, is that right? Think you can take me? Oh, with both eyes closed and one hand behind my back. So, okay, we'd get on the street. I'd say, you ready? Ready. I'd put the hammer down, he would. I'd leave him in the dust.
Whoa.
He'd pull up afterwards and say, what do you got under the hood there? I said, none of your business.
What?
Yeah.
Man. And that was your 41 Plymouth?
No, this was the 39 Pontiac.
Oh, 39 Pontiac. Okay.
And it was fast for its day
Wow.
because of those 2 carburetors.
Really?
And so now everything is turbocharged.
Yeah.
But the turbocharger came out in 1932 or 33. And they were in the race cars.
Right. Wow.
And the Cord was turbocharged.
That foreign car?
No, it's
Cord.
American.
Cord was American?
Oh, yeah, made in Indiana.
Oh, wow.
And its sister was the Auburn, and made in Indiana also.
Wow.
Yeah, it's just an interesting thing the way the auto industry has developed.
Yeah.
Now, what's changed everything in our day is electronics. We get the gas mileage because of electronics.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't get that kind of mileage back in those days.
Yeah.
I mean, you got a thing like this, you're pouring gasoline in, and only the race cars had injectors. You just had cylinders with a hose going into it, or a pipe.
Really?
Yeah, and it would mix the air and drop it in.
Wow.
So it's come a long way.
Yeah, it seriously has. Okay, I think that's a good place to stop for today.
Okay,
What do you think?
good.
Okay, so that's the end of our first podcast with Grandpa Rod Allee. We'll be continuing his life on the next episode. Make sure you guys tune in.